Alrighty, so we are back again for our continuation of our series of the top 10 Star Trek episodes, top 10 rated by fans, because some of them, honestly, I know would not be in my top 10. But that being said, we're going to kick this off with Amok Time, which is the first episode in season 2. So this particular episode, Spock begins experiencing strange behavior due to Farr, the Vulcan stuff going on that related to their mating cycle, right? And then the Enterprise has to divert course to get to Vulcan so that Spock can engage in the ritual combat ceremony. I just want to kick it off and kind of see just brief overview, your thoughts on the episode, kind of where it falls within, I don't know, your ranking of Star Trek episodes, or just general thoughts on it. And then we can kind of get into some of the more specifics. So, J3, why don't we start with you?
Amok Time is just a funny episode for me. It's good. You find out a lot about Spock. It's interesting because, it's his first request for shore leave, and everybody's wondering why he's acting so strange and out of character. I find it interesting just from a universal perspective, Star Trek universe perspective, the fact that that's the one sphere of Vulcan existence, and there's such a Vulcan. There's such a guarded society and guarded culture that you find out that they become effectively just savages when it comes to the mating aspect of their culture. I find it weird. The one thing that was the strangest for me was the whole T'Pring, his betrothed from age 7 or whatever it is, that to know and not know. I can't remember everything they said. I watched it a while back, but overall, I thought it was
not touched.
Yeah, that whole thing, and I thought it was kind of wild how she set him up, for lack of a better term, set up William Shatner's Captain Kirk as a whole logical. I can't lose. No matter.
Yeah, it was a very logical choice on her side. Spock
that was cool when it showed that both sides of their culture, so long as they have decision-making power, and they will use that logic to the ends they want to meet, even whenever everybody talks about the Romulans are assholes. It's like she's willing to sacrifice whoever to get her way, and it was logically done. So good for her. Overall, I thought it's a good episode. It's the fight seems so campy, such a strange weapon.
Yeah, actually, I have that listed as something to talk about later, the LRPA. Yeah. What about you, Connor?
I haven't seen much of the original series to compare it and kind of, place it in a ranking. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting with Spock being so logical and analytical. It is an entirely different side of him. Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've watched the original Star Trek in general. So yeah, the campiness definitely stood out throughout the whole episode. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a nice perspective, and it raised the stakes of when Kirk did have to go up against Spock. Yeah, I thought it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. James?
Well, I think it brings a whole new meaning to the term dying to get laid, since, it was a combat to the death. But, yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. But it also, the first thing it made me wonder is, do the Romulans, who are so based on emotions, but they are a splinter group from the Vulcans, do they approach their mating logically?
In a logical fashion. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it just
might be like arranged marriages or something.
So,
keep going.
I thought T'Pring was, yes, she was logical. She was really cold-hearted, man. That was, I mean, I guess under their culture, that was really her only way of backing out. But yeah, I don't know, very cold-hearted.
Everybody's kind of touched on it, and I guess that's kind of the main plot of this episode, right? Is the idea of Vulcans being a very logical society. Everything's, based in that analytical perspective. However, this one aspect of their culture, yes, is very primitive. It's back to antiquity and all of that. And the first thing I was thinking, and I'm curious to hear your all's thoughts, what like examples do we have of that in real life? Right. I mean, particularly you think of it as advanced as we are nowadays, or even, you could think 100 years ago, 200 years. Anyway, what are customs that we still kind of engage in, right? That would be seen as super primitive. I'm sure some folks might like try and bring up like religion and certain rituals related to that type of stuff, but I'm looking for, I don't know, something maybe a bit different from that aspect.
You have to go to third world, like developing nations and whatnot.
But see, that to me, that's not advanced, right?
That's what I'm saying. So
modern
I don't think
society.
within modern society, within developed nations, I can't really think of anything off the top that we have like
India still has
or rites of passage where you have to not die.
India still has arranged marriages.
Well, it's not the arranged marriage that I think he's talking about. I think he's talking about like the combat challenge to the death in terms of winning said mate.
Yeah, to me, it'd be something like doing bloodletting still, right? Which we do in certain respects, right? Something along those lines, like either because honestly it's still good and it works, or because we've just held on to it for so long as a species that it's just kind of ingrained in the culture. I couldn't think of anything just off the top of my head that was a good example of that, but I know that there's got to be plenty of them.
One thing I was thinking of that kind of just struck me as we were talking about it with the Amok Time episode. Something interesting, there's the whole Vulcans are logical, Spock represents logic devoid of emotion and the ability to separate whatever. I think one thing that points out in this episode that I think is poignant is the fact that McCoy, the doctor, brings up the fact that if they do not divert their course and skate their assigned mission and get them to Vulcan for Spock, he can die. Like there's a blood fever that is related to this, and call it what you will. I think it's representative of, you can be as logical and whatnot as you want, but there are certain aspects of life where you have to be base, you have to be primal, as it were, or emotional, and that's whether it's sex, whatever. But there's certain aspects you cannot be a 100% devoid of emotion, logical creature. And I think also we get in this episode the answer to a question from a previous review, and that question is whether or not Spock can be embarrassed. We see whenever he throws that bowl of soup out and it hits the wall and he comes out and sees what he'd done and he sees that Captain Kirk is there to have witnessed his behavior, he's shamed, he's embarrassed. And again, we can go back, is that because he understands contextually that what his behavior, the behavior he exhibited is an embarrassing behavior, or whether he's actually internalizing that emotion is neither here nor there. He was embarrassed.
Yeah, that's actually a big part of this entire episode. I thought that was kind of fascinating, is that take on just basic biology, right? So no matter how much you try to advance yourself or kind of step away from it, there are these underlying factors that drive us. And obviously Spock is, being Vulcan is not human, but obviously they're, portraying like this is just stuff that we all go through. So as much as you might try and put a hold on it, and I think about it a lot actually just in my lifetime and in society and stuff like that, is when you try and put a cap on people's behaviors. And we're seeing this a lot, particularly with men and masculinity, right? Not allowing boys to be boys, men to be men, and kind of the deleterious effects that has, right? When you're not able to do rough and tumble play, when you're not able to show assertiveness or aggression, right? And you try and put a cap on that, eventually that bottle explodes and you get, pretty bad things that come about because you never learn to regulate it properly. And that's kind of what it showed to me with this, right? If Spock wasn't able to actually go through this ritual and everything, in this case, he'd die, but you think about it in other respects. Well, if you're not able to ever have that pressure relief valve go off, eventually it's going to culminate in some type of disaster. And
hey, I have a thought. It's not universal now, but in many countries, even to this day, Switzerland is a good example. One of those primitive customs that bring you into manhood would be joining the military. There are still a lot of countries that have mandatory military service when you reach a particular age.
Yeah, a whole lot do. I know South Korea, Egypt,
Switzerland.
apparently. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot that have
I don't think that
conscription
meets
still.
the requirements though for crazy
It
primal.
doesn't. To me, that's not a. I mean, having a military is a current day thing.
The
Like, to me, that's still not an old.
mandatory service isn't like. Hey, granted,
Well, yeah, but
you can argue that it's barbaric or primal, but I think that's any developed nation. Some still have the conscription act, or excuse me, conscripted service as part of your.
Well, I'm not talking about so much as having the military as the propensity or the possibility of violence from being in the military.
Yeah, but
so it doesn't matter.
That's not custom. That's not a custom or a rite of passage. Like that's. I mean, I guess war may be the oldest rite of passage or custom of humanity, but I don't know. It's just, to me, that's a socio-cultural guarantee. War is. So for me, I'm thinking Stephen was referring to antiquated or outdated customs or rituals within our society, not necessarily societies combating with others.
Yeah, that still wouldn't.
Okay, so you're talking more about going to the neighboring tribe and stealing your bride.
I don't even know if that would really come to it. Maybe it'd be something that makes no sense to be doing.
That we still do
in current day, right? Like, for example, if you used to pray to the gods for good bounty and harvest, right? We don't do that. Why? Because we know that has nothing to do with agriculture and harvest and all that type of stuff, right? But if for whatever reason we still did that, despite knowing that it doesn't do anything, that would reach that level. Same with, like, again, bloodletting, right? Oh, we got to get the bad humors out and the spirits and all this. Well, actually, okay, that's a good one, actually, saying bless you when somebody sneezes, right? From my understanding, that entire thing comes from the idea that you have an evil spirit in you or something like that. And so when you sneeze, we say bless you. Yeah, like something like that would reach that level. But to me, that doesn't even reach the level because it's just something that's kind of carried out and most people don't even know where it comes from. But
well, my thought would be something if we still saw in today's day and age, because we know that there's still Native American Indian tribes all throughout the United States. And one of the things that I'm fairly certain happened, I believe it was among Plains Indians, but multiple different tribes. I believe it was like different Sioux tribes would get together, and don't quote me on this, but say, for instance, for lack of a better term, the princess of whatever tribe, the most coveted woman, would be battles between whatever braves or whatever their name, whatever you would call them in their culture. But the warriors would fight amongst the champions of these different tribes, amongst this major tribe, and whoever wins comes out as, he gets the girl, much akin to Amok Time. And I think Stephen's saying, is there anything existing today that they still do that? And
I can see
they don't do that anymore.
I feel like we'd have to look at, like, I can think of, actually, because I know some people that still do this. Actually, I guess it's pretty common amongst, like, the woo-woo women with the crystals and all that type of shit. But, like, taking sage, you get a new place, you get sage, you burn it to get rid of all the evil stuff and
smudging,
positive energy. Smudging. Yeah, weird stuff like that. Like, to me, that's silly. Or crystals, horoscopes, all that type of crap.
The crystals get me.
Yeah.
The crystals get me.
I thought it was fascinating, Kirk's willingness to sacrifice his career for Spock, right? Originally, he very plainly said it to Dr. McCoy. Is this friendship, is it worth a career? And to him, it was, right? And so he was going to buck the orders from command to get to wherever they were supposed to be going in order to save his second in command and friend's life. Which is, I don't think it's something to be taken lightly, given the understanding of how the command works and, what it takes to be a captain and all of that. I thought that was interesting. Although I will say this is a common occurrence, and we've talked about it before within Star Trek, and I'm going to talk about it in the next episode that we review too, actually. but basic little things that have no reason to be overlooked. So whenever Kirk gets picked to be the one to fight, why not ask what the hell the rules are?
Yeah,
They're just jumping right into it, like, and it very clearly saying, like, well, you're not bound to it. We don't know what's going on. You're even hearing Spock plead with T'Pau that, you know, they know not what they're doing or getting into. It's like, well, why don't you just ask, guys?
And it's not like he's not allowed to ask what the rules are.
Yeah.
That was actually something I thought of while I was watching it, and I'm sad I forgot to bring it up first. Because, why would you agree to anything without understanding it? It's kind of like terms of use. You know, how many people actually read the terms of use?
Great South Park episode.
That's exactly what I was thinking. The human centipede episode. Centipede.
Human centipede.
Well, but even this episode, do you remember the Futurama episode with Zoidberg? And it was based off this episode. Zoidberg has to fight for, and you know, it loses, and it was the whole thing about mating and everything. The only other talking point that I had actually was about the Lurpa, so the weapon that they use, which I think is really cool. You know, the blunt side on one end and then the double-bladed axe head on the other. But I thought it would be kind of cool to fight with one of those things. But
well, it looked like an ulu on one end, didn't it? I can't remember. I thought it had the ulu on one end.
That's what it is, yeah.
Then it looked like a fucking half-built road sign to me.
I didn't get that.
I think the blunt end
anyway, I didn't like it.
Was a little too big.
That's my thing. It just
if it were solid, it wouldn't make any sense. But I could see if it's more of a hollowed out core.
Or it's some super duper light but ultra strong space alloy on Vulcan that we don't know about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like aluminum or something. Okay, the other one is that secondary weapon. Dude,
yeah, I forget
that looked like it was just cloth. And he whipped it out there and got it to wrap around Kirk's leg. So either it was weighted or it was not made of the flimsy cloth that it looked like. Because it definitely was not whip-like.
I don't even remember. I mean, probably. I mean, I guess was it supposed to be acting like a bolo type thing?
Well, no, because they used the counterbalance of multiple weights. This was acting like a whip. Like I said, if it was weighted, I could see it, but it didn't look like it was weighted. It looked like a bandage.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to rewatch it, because I didn't pay much attention to the other secondary weapon, which I don't even remember the name of it.
The L1, I believe.
Onwu.
Huh. That's what it is. Oh, I guess kind of as you were talking, I did remember one other thing, and it's the very end of the episode, and we do see a bunch of emotion for a brief moment from Spock, right? Because ultimately he thinks that he has killed Kirk, and he's going to turn himself in and all of that. But whenever he comes to find out that he's alive, there's a huge burst of emotion out of him, and he has to very quickly recognize and then kind of bring that back under. So that was another, again, it's always interesting with Spock, right? Being half Vulcan, half human, and kind of seeing where that falls in terms of his interactions and everything else.
Well, he does always seem embarrassed when it happens.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I love McCoy and his relationship, because that's kind of always the counteracting aspects of their relationship.
It's the interplay of their relationship.
Well, did anybody have anything else?
And I think what we'll find, and again, I haven't watched enough of the original to know this, but I think from what I've seen in the movies, it seems like the more familiar, or the more that Spock is around humans, which he's predominantly around humans, I think that his lapses of emotion become more prevalent. You know what I mean? Because he leans more towards that aspect of his individual character. But the embarrassment is basically just the nod to, wait a second, I identify as Vulcan.
Which would make sense. And actually, you know, I think that would happen to any Vulcan, because we've already established that it's not something that's innate to them. They do it like through a meditative practice. They train themselves to be this way, which means that it isn't innate. It means that it
it's
could
an
be
art and a
taken over
skill.
emotionally.
Some are better than others.
Yeah.
It's like even within their own culture, we don't know a lot about it, but obviously there's the head of the Vulcan Science Academy. I'm sure he's a lot sharper with his Vulcan mind tricks and shit than the guy that's scrubbing the floors at the Vulcan Science Academy.
Yeah, exactly.
And comparatively to a human, I'm sure any Vulcan is like, holy shit, you're Spock level badass, but he's really just like the janitor on Vulcan.
Mm-hmm.
No knocking on a master of the custodial arts now. I'm just saying.
There are differences. I didn't have any other things really on this. It was an enjoyable episode for me. I liked it a lot. But anybody else? Was there any other things that stood out for you or something you want to discuss?
I was just wondering, pardon, what you wanted to comment on the weapon.
Oh, I just liked it, and I thought it would be fun to replicate and actually have a fight with. It kind of reminds me, do you remember in Major Pain where the kids are fighting and it's like the toothpick looking thing where it's just, I think it'd be cool having something like that and just being able to whack one another around with it.
It would be fun to play with. I agree.
Yeah, remind me of the it's the American Gladiator or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I was trying to see if there's ever been any historical weapons similar to that, but apparently not.
Well, I mean, pugil sticks are meant to replicate quarterstaffs.
Yeah, I mean, even this is, it's a combination of like a pole arm along with some other stuff, but it's
got that big crescent blade on the one end and the hammer type thing on the other.
Right.
It would be cool to see what it could do.
All right. Well, I guess we'll leave it at that, and you can catch us on the next one. We're going to be talking about mirror